How to Talk to Anyone can help. It's packed with tips and techniques that will help you develop your social skills, charisma, and small talk abilities. Hello, you are listening to How to Talk to Anyone, Improve Your Social Skills, Develop Charisma, Master Small Talk, and become a people person to make real friends and build meaningful relationships. Provided to you by United Audiobooks. I hope you enjoy. Now, let us begin. Introduction. We all dread the awkward silence resulting from having to speak to a complete stranger. Maybe a new employee sits next to you at a business dinner, or maybe you bump into a friend of a friend at a wedding. How do you move past the introduction stage? How about when you're in a high-pressure situation and need to stand out from the competition, like a job interview? There's also the option of a blind date. How can you, if you want to, make it the beginning of something significant? This audiobook has been made for you if you struggle to engage in conversation or want to attempt at meeting new people. Instead of looking at your feed and waiting for someone to start a conversation with you, here we'll show you how to control a conversation. Everyone has a unique way of speaking. If you're an extrovert, it's likely that you can enter any social situation and at the very least start a discussion without feeling awkward. However, if you're more restrained, you might wince in this situation. You keep thinking about how much you wish you could get away. On the introversion-extroversion scale, most people fall somewhere in the middle. Still, everyone has moments of brilliance and times of complete failure when the pressure is on to be brilliant. Small talk success is similar to success in other social contexts, such as online chats, job interviews, and social networking. The fundamental idea is that through communicating with others in the correct degree of self-disclosure, empathy, and subtlety, you can uncover points of commonality with them. Some people can start up a conversation with anyone, including total strangers, but many people find it challenging to converse with strangers. This could be pretty unpleasant for you if you suffer from social anxiety. Even though small social talk is challenging for you, you can still develop your conversational abilities and feel more at ease approaching others. To succeed in this, practice is essential. Making an introductory remark, which need not be complicated, is your initial goal. That first remark aims to create a dialogue that will allow you to continue once the other person answers. How hard is it to say hi to a stranger you pass on the street? How might that dialogue go on? What are the places where you are most likely to interact with strangers? What is the best way to end a conversation? These questions appear to be simple. They are not. Learning to speak with strangers can be pretty beneficial whether you're searching for a new friendship, romantic partner, or casual acquaintance. When you connect with someone new, you have the chance to grow yourself and gain fresh insights and experiences. However, speaking with strangers can still be challenging and daunting even when other people are more accessible to reach than ever thanks to social media and dating applications. This audiobook will give you practical advice and tactics for conversing fluently with anyone. Chapter 1. Listen before you speak. I'm extroverted. I'm on the end of it, according to my brother. Whether or not that's scientifically accurate, it offers a picture of how I adore people, stories, and talking. My wife teases me that I always begin by saying, well, whenever she asks how my day went, cue launching into a story about the car journey, the train journey, the people I met, and that's before I get into work. Although I struggle with listening, I'm learning to appreciate it. I recently had the honor of working as a shadow for a coaching company that does fantastic work with corporations to train senior executives to listen. It was a 3-day workshop, but listening for 3 days? Who does that? If you can't listen to your customers, they won't genuinely listen to what you say, and you won't win influence or business. So the least we should do is devote 3 days to this talent. A select handful of us loves talking. When we're extroverts, it's not always about the sound of our voice, but we often have a lot to say that we think others need to hear. The problem is that we don't do much listening or learning when talking, and we frequently don't do much when we're listening. There are a few reasons you would want to speak less and listen more, including improving your conversational skills. You'll discover 6 reasons to learn to talk less in this chapter. Additionally, we'll go through some practical advice on how to enhance your daily conversations by listening more. 6 reasons to listen more and speak less. There are several reasons why it's crucial to improve your listening skills. We'll examine 6 of them now. 1. You might pick up something new. Consider the possibility that the person you are listening to may be aware of something you are not. You may learn from each person's diverse experiences, abilities, and skills. You can redefine your contribution to the conversation so that it is more about learning than preaching if you learn to talk less and listen more. Let's examine an illustration. You're discussing the best way to handle new sales outreach for the quarter with your manager at work. You're adamant that using automated email marketing is the best action. After all, you've been doing things for years and have had fantastic success. You were first employed as a sales leader for this very purpose. The VP of Sales, however, has a different viewpoint. They want you to use LinkedIn to start cold outreach. Because you succeeded elsewhere, you spent years honing your email campaign skills while ignoring social outreach. Even though you've succeeded with your strategy, your boss's advice offers something to consider. If you've learned to say less and listen more in this situation, you might be able to get some helpful information from your manager. You two might even settle on a dual strategy. 2. Whoever you're speaking to will respect and trust you. People will appreciate and admire you if you learn to be a great listener and encourage them to talk about themselves. Consider your most recent date. When you returned home saying, "Wow, I enjoyed myself. We had some pretty intriguing and enjoyable chats." How much did they talk about themselves compared to how much you talked about yourself? Try to recall the last date you had that was genuinely awful. Now, this one might come to mind more quickly. They most likely talked about themselves nonstop and hardly asked anything about you. This tendency holds for friendships, family, and professional connections in addition to romantic ones. Gain their trust, admiration, and respect by getting them to talk about themselves. 3. Whenever you speak, people will pay attention to you. Why can so many successful people enter a room and immediately demand attention? Their achievement indeed has an impact since people are interested in what successful people say. When they do talk, their words have more weight. Compared to people who speak more frequently, their speech is shorter and more pertinent to the topic. You'll attract more attention when you add to the conversation because you've mastered the art of listening. 4. You have the option to play it safe. Not all conversations form a friendly, informal talk among friends. You'll have some problematic chats, particularly in the professional setting. You might vehemently disagree with your coworkers' opinions. The last thing you want is to engage in a heated fight and damage the work environment. Additionally, since their viewpoint is so drastically different from yours, you can learn more about how they develop it. Speaking less and listening more will help keep your thoughts to yourself and better understand other people's perspectives. This can prevent conflict at work and help you have a more comprehensive view of the world. 5. You're less likely to say anything foolish or regrettable. All of us have been there. You're intensely engaged in a discussion about which you are passionate and you've gotten off topic. The realization that you're the only one speaking won't sink in until you say something that provokes a negative response from your peers. Perhaps the viewpoint you expressed was unpleasant, underdeveloped, and didn't reflect your thoughts and feelings. It's possible that you disclosed some information that was meant to be private. Perhaps you merely mumbled and embarrassed yourself a little. You can allow yourself room to explore your thoughts by learning to talk less and listen more. It gives you more time to organize these thoughts into clear sentences, and you're less likely to say something that makes you blush. 6. You can carry on the conversation. When there's nothing else to say, conversations end very quickly. This frequently occurs because both parties have expressed what they want to say. You'll think of interesting questions that can continue a conversation if you're focused on listening rather than waiting for your turn to talk. Asking insightful questions will help you understand your conversation partner's perspective more. You'll frequently find the conversation so interesting that you wind yourself talking about topics unrelated to the one you started with. So, how do you listen more? How can one, therefore, learn to speak less and listen more? The most excellent method to address this is to strengthen your ability to listen actively. Here are some pointers. Retain firm eye contact. Making eye contact can convey a lot of messages. Separate judgment. Never assume what the other individual is saying. You're inclined to ramble on in your brain, attempting to think why they're wrong. Avoid jumping ahead. We frequently make an effort to guess what other people will say next. When we do this, our responses are based more on what we anticipate them to say than on what they say. Try to comprehend instead of simply responding. Rather than waiting for your chance to talk, focus more on what the other person is saying. Before you speak, allow them to express their thoughts fully. Become accustomed to silence. We feel embarrassed when there is quiet between speakers, which is one of the reasons why a lot of us are eager to speak next. By letting the other person know that you think before you say, a simple will do, you can lessen their uneasiness. Repeat what they just stated to them. Reiterating what you've just heard is a great approach to demonstrate that you're paying attention and understanding what's being said. Typically, this sounds like, so what you're saying is, seek clarification. It's possible that you didn't fully comprehend what they meant if you can't relay their meaning back to them. Ask them to elaborate without fear. Doing so will demonstrate that you're participating in the conversation. Chapter 2. Use empathic skills. Recently, someone told me about an encounter that perfectly captures a common occurrence and demonstrates a lack of empathy and self-awareness. Perhaps you can relate. It's so simple to find oneself unprepared in real-life circumstances. She told me, I ran into a grocery shop for a quick stop during a busy and stressful period and ran into a friend. I inquired about her situation because she seemed stressed. She immediately started complaining about the current situation in a fight she had just had with her husband. I listened, but soon realized that neither I had the time for a lengthy chat nor was I ready for the tidal wash of feelings and words. She abruptly said goodbye when her expression changed to one of sadness. I felt bad I hadn't shown her the empathy she deserved afterward. The circumstance described above didn't happen because the friend was insensitive or uncaring. Although she told me she had the best intentions, being there for a friend requires more than good intentions. Good word choices might backfire if we are overburdened, especially during trying times, or if our responses don't reflect how we are feeling or what we need at the moment. In other words, you need the ability of empathy, first for yourself, if you want to be genuine to yourself and connect with compassion. It's quite easy to be nice by asking about someone or offering to listen when we simply don't have the time, as the woman's experience shows. We sometimes ask a kind question even when we are too burdened by our problems to be present. This makes us human rather than heartless, and this woman was quite hard on herself for not responding to her friend, which implies it was time to practice empathy for oneself. Empathy is not only for others. Another innate tendency is to downplay our own or another person's experience rather than show genuine empathy. Understanding the hazards of what to avoid can help you better prepare to react empathetically and prevent a lack of empathy. With empathy, we can better anticipate how the other person could behave and how their words and actions might be interpreted. The other person will understand your message more easily if you consider their demands and preferences. This also shows that you are aware of their hectic schedules and challenges. Empathy is all about knowing that your concerns and viewpoints are no more or no less valid than anyone else's. Below, we'll discuss the importance of empathic communication and how to start being more empathetic. But first, What does empathic mean? What does empathy mean? How can we express empathy to others? Empathy and empathizing, in their most fundamental senses, refer to the desire to comprehend the thoughts and feelings of another person. How do you tell when you are truly empathizing? Let's start by quickly going over the many types of empathy. Empathy comes in 3 types: cognitive, emotional, and compassionate. All 3 have slightly different applications, but they all communicate that you are aware of how the other person is feeling and that you want to provide a secure environment in which they may work through their issue. There are specific fundamental elements to exhibiting empathy, varying depending on the kind. Let's go over the various categories of empathy. Cognition empathy. Understanding someone else's feelings and figuring out what they might be thinking is known as cognitive empathy. Affective or emotional empathy. The capacity to share another person's feelings is referred to as emotional empathy. This would imply that you experience sadness when you witness someone else's sadness. Empathetic concern or compassionate empathy. When you act on your emotions, you exhibit human empathy. It goes beyond relating to and comprehending other people's circumstances and motivates someone to take action. Importance of empathy in communication. Establish connections with others around you. Empathy makes it easier to overcome your fear of strangers. You must practice empathic communication if you don't want to feel alone in the world and like everyone is against you. Understanding that everyone has much in common with you and that we are essentially pursuing the same goals helps you develop empathy. It serves as a reminder that helping and caring for one another are traits that are ingrained in us genetically. Let go of all prejudice. The media and society have brainwashed us into believing that all Muslims are terrorists, Jews run the globe, etc. When we give the individuals standing in front of us an opportunity to share their narrative, view their experiences through their eyes, and comprehend the motivations behind doing what they do, all anger and terror disappear. It benefits the environment as well. We become more responsive to the elements that may help or hinder someone else's development when we establish connections with them and gain an awareness of their needs, experiences, and ambitions. As a result, we begin to exhibit altruistic and compassionate traits, and as a result, we become more conscious of the effects of our actions. How can you improve your empathy in communication? While some people have a greater capacity for empathy than others, anyone may develop their empathy via simple, research-backed exercises. Fostering empathy. It might sound like we're about to enter the realm of psychoanalysis when we talk about understanding another person's feelings, but getting started is much easier. Ask questions. Asking the right questions is a talent that isn't used nearly enough. Everyone can improve their questioning and understanding with a little effort. This rule applies to casual conversations that may provide background information on the other person and more direct inquiries like, "How can I assist you with that project?" Listen. It can be challenging to refrain from offering your suggestions and counsel, but actively listening to the other person's ideas can help you develop empathy and complement asking the right questions. Be sure to pay attention to nonverbal clues and express your understanding of what has been said by providing comments. Cultural sensitivity. A person's cultural upbringing will affect how they communicate and perceive the world. Awareness of cultural norms and customs can avoid embarrassing gaffes and gain a better understanding. It's also a sign of respect, demonstrating familiarity with the other person's language and culture, which will endear you to them immediately. Play the part of a defendant. To foster understanding, it's often recommended to place oneself in their shoes. However, this can demand the knowledge or creativity that we lack. Instead, make every effort to support their position. Create the strongest possible defense against a fictitious adversary while acting as though you're a team member. This will make you set your agenda aside and evaluate your viewpoint more critically. Use everyday examples. Digging into one's recollection and experiences is probably the best way to assess another person's emotional condition. Have you ever faced a new challenge? What was a circumstance in which you felt a lot of pressure? What emotions did that evoke, and how did you handle the challenge? When we can connect with others on a human level, our comprehension of others expands. Even though we might not always be able to recall a pertinent incident, if we use this technique more, it will become easier to draw connections. I hope you're enjoying my audiobook so far. It would be a pleasure if you could let me know how you're feeling about this audiobook in the comments section below. We would greatly appreciate it if you could also like this video and subscribe to United Audiobooks to have access to more best-selling audiobooks in the future. Also, if you're interested in getting more free audiobooks, please click the first link in the description below. Now, let us carry on with the next chapter. Chapter 3. Turn on your nonverbal detectors. Building relationships with someone on a personal and professional level requires effective communication skills. Verbal and nonverbal communication are the two major categories. While many of us are unaware of it and utilize it frequently, nonverbal communication is unintentional and can disclose much about people and situations. We'll talk about nonverbal communication in this chapter, what it is, why it's significant, how to read it, and how to develop your nonverbal communication abilities. Nonverbal communication. What is it? The transfer of information through body language, gestures, facial emotions, created space, and other nonverbal cues is known as nonverbal communication. For instance, smiling at someone when you first meet them communicates warmth, acceptance, and openness. Unlike verbal communication, which is the use of language to communicate information through written text, speech, or sign language, nonverbal communication depends on facial expressions and physical motions. Why is verbal communication important? Your nonverbal communication cues, such as how you listen, look, move, and react, let the other person know whether or not you care about them, whether or not you're being sincere, and the quality of your listening. It improves trust, clarity, and rapport when your nonverbal cues and what you're speaking line up. It might lead to conflict, distrust, and uncertainty when they don't. It's critical to be more aware of your body language and nonverbal cues if you wish to improve your communication skills. Nonverbal communication can play 5 roles. Repetition reinforces the point you're trying to make vocally by repeating it. Contradiction. It can run counter to your point, implying to your audience that you might not be telling the truth. Substitution. It can take the place of spoken communication. For instance, your look typically makes a much more powerful statement than words ever could. Complementing. It could strengthen or enhance your verbal message. The impact of your message as a boss can be increased if you give a pat on the back in addition to praise. Accentuation. A spoken statement may be highlighted or accented. For instance, banging the table can emphasize how important your message is. Types of nonverbal communication. Below are some of the nonverbal communication styles you should know. Facial expressions. The face can discreetly convey a wide range of emotions since it's so expressive. In contrast to other nonverbal communication strategies, facial expressions are also common. In many cultures, people show happiness, sadness, anger, surprise, fear, and disgust with the same facial expressions. Posture and mobility of the body. Consider how a person's posture, gait, or head position may affect your perception of them. The world can learn much about you from how you move and carry yourself. The small motions that you make, as well as your posture, bearing, and stance, all fall under the category of nonverbal communication. Gestures. In one way or another, gestures are a part of everyday life. You make gestures without thinking about them. However, among common cultures, some gestures might have completely diverse meanings. In English-speaking nations, the hand signal for OK, for instance, typically communicates a positive message. However, it is viewed as offensive in countries like Germany, Russia, and Brazil. Therefore, it's crucial to utilize gestures carefully to prevent misunderstandings. Eye contact. Regarding nonverbal communication, eye contact is especially important because it is most people's most common sensory preference. Looking at someone can convey various emotions such as attention, affection, hatred, or attraction. Maintaining eye contact is crucial for the flow of the discussion and determining the other person's level of attention and response. Touch. There are several methods by which we communicate. Consider the vastly diverse meanings that might be sent by, for example, a wobbly handshake, a bear hug, a strong grip on the arm, or a condescending pat on the head. Space. Have you ever found it uncomfortable to talk to someone because they invaded your personal space? Our demands for physical space are universal regardless of culture, environment, or the intensity of the connection. Nonverbal indications of intimacy and affection, hostility, and dominance can all be conveyed through the usage of physical space. Voice. The way you say something is just as important as what you say. People listen to your words while you talk and read your voice. They pay attention to your speech patterns, tempo, volume, tone, inflection, and sounds like and indicate understanding. Consider the different emotions that your voice can convey, such as sarcasm, wrath, affection, or confidence. How to read nonverbal cues. Throughout your career, you'll need to learn to read nonverbal cues like body language. Although everyone employs nonverbal communication uniquely, there are a few universal signs to watch for that will reveal a person's sentiments, intentions, and motivations. Observing a person's verbal and nonverbal cues when talking to them might be useful. Here are several indicators you might notice. Position. A person who is engaged, attentive, and open to the ideas or information you offer will have their shoulders back and their spine straight. They may be tense, apprehensive, or furious if they have a bad posture with their shoulders slumped or lifted and their spine bowed. Use of arms. A sign that someone feels good and is prepared to take in information is if their arms are by their sides, on the table, or in another open position. They can feel anything bad if their arms are crossed or closed. Using the legs. A person is ready and receptive to hear your thoughts if they stand with both feet flat on the ground. They may be agitated or under stress if their legs are crossed or in another closed position. The expression on one's face. You might pause when speaking to someone who is frowning, furrowing their brow, or pursed lips to ensure that they are not experiencing confusion, anger, or another negative emotion. A faint grin, relaxed facial muscles, or subtly lifted eyebrows indicate that the person you are speaking with is satisfied with the information you're presenting. How to improve nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is a swiftly moving back and forth procedure that necessitates your complete attention to the present time. You will virtually certainly miss nonverbal clues and not completely comprehend the subtleties of what is being expressed if you are preparing your next line of speech looking at your phone or thinking about anything else. By managing stress and increasing your emotional awareness, you can enhance your nonverbal communication in addition to being fully present. Learn to manage stress when it arises. Your capacity to communicate is hampered by stress. Stress makes it more possible for you to misinterpret other people, give off unclear or unwelcoming nonverbal cues, and engage in unhealthy knee-jerk reactions. And keep in mind that emotions spread quickly. A terrible situation will only get worse if you are upset because it's extremely likely that others will also be irritated. Take a break if you're feeling overly stressed. Before resuming the chat, take a moment to gather your composure. You'll be better able to handle the situation positively once you've regained emotional balance. Employing your senses. What you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, or through a calming movement, is the quickest and best way to reduce stress at the moment. You can easily unwind and refocus by, for instance, looking at a picture of your child or pet, inhaling a favorite aroma, listening to a particular song, or squeezing a stress ball. You might need to try different sensory experiences to see which one suits you the best, because everyone reacts differently to them. Increase your emotional intelligence. You must also be aware of your emotions and how they affect you to convey effective nonverbal signs. You also need to be able to read other people's body language and understand their actual sentiments. This is when emotional intelligence is useful. When you are emotionally aware, you can accurately read other people's emotions and nonverbal cues and the emotions they are feeling. Establish relationships based on trust by using nonverbal cues that are consistent with your spoken cues. React in a way that communicates your understanding and concern for others. As a result of being taught to suppress our emotions, many people today are emotionally disconnected, especially from powerful emotions like anger, grief, and fear. You can suppress or reject your feelings, but can't get rid of them. They remain and continue to have an impact on your actions. But you'll have more control over your thoughts and actions if you learn to connect with even the negative emotions and increase your emotional awareness. Chapter 4. Avoid making snap judgment. When was the last time you quickly formed an opinion on someone only to discover that it was incorrect? Perhaps you asked a customer in line at the grocery store when she was due, and she politely and icily responded that she wasn't expecting. Or you walked away from a menacing dog that wanted to lick everyone in sight, or you thanked a young man who appeared not to be one. All have made similar mistakes of us. Everyone feels uncomfortable when we make decisions based on these snap judgments. It's a bad emotion that lingers in your mind. If you make a mistake, maybe you'll learn from it. When you're the target, it stays with you, teaching to be more watchful or live less honestly. Our brains have developed to make snap judgments about new people to categorize them into categories that make sense. It's how our ancestors determined whether something was safe or dangerous. In those tense moments in the alley, this urge was entirely justified. However, in normal interactions, our brain still needs to categorize when we aren't in a predator-prey scenario. We stare at people who are difficult for us to categorize. The other person is upset and alienated by this, yet it gives our brains more times to process new information about them. Snap judgments have implications. Snap judgment is a fast opinion or viewpoint, Merriam-Webster. It's advisable to keep your guard up and determine whether or not your surroundings are secure when traveling down a dark street. This skill helps in a lot of circumstances. A suspicious individual in an elevator? Wait for the next vehicle. Conflicting voices shouting at one another? Leave the area. If a driver tailgates you, move to a slower lane. Early in human history, the capacity to quickly measure up a situation or a person was a crucial survival skill. Safety depended on the ability to make split-second decisions about whether to fight, run, or relax. Danger lurked everywhere. This innate response system is still functioning today. Although your judgment is usually correct, it can occasionally backfire. When making a snap judgment, one labels something or a person as either right or wrong, safe or hazardous, or likable or unlikable. They are either accepted or rejected by your evaluation. This, in turn, impacts how you react to them. When you welcome them, your nonverbal communication naturally changes into a friendlier, more welcoming state. As a result of them reading your body language, a rapport is developed. The foundation for a lasting connection has been laid if your assessment is correct. But what if your assessment is inaccurate? In this instance, you've developed a relationship with a potential threat to your safety. Conversely, if you make a negative snap judgment, your nonverbal cues will be offensive, pushing the individual away. Once more, if your judgment is incorrect, you risk alienating a potential ally and friend. The best way to avoid snap judgment. There are many instances in life where we must act quickly and judge events. When we meet someone who sets off our internal radar, signaling that being with them is perilous, sometimes it's for our safety. We rapidly decide that something is wrong with this individual and that we should avoid them. It's crucial to pay attention to that inner voice, especially when it concerns our defense. In contrast, we often make decisions in our daily lives without all the information. We become hasty in our responses and fail to give the other person or situation a chance. We judge, act hastily, and say and do things based on erroneous interpretations. We could be mistaken about what we believe to be true. So let's find a way to avoid adding more burdens to an already difficult situation while aiming for more trust and unity. Overcoming the tendency to judge. Being conscious of our propensity to judge is one of the first steps in overcoming it. Knowing when we are making judgments in the first place is the only way to stop doing so completely. Realizing that they are tuning out others is a defining trait of judgmental people. We cease listening when we jump to conclusions. Unfortunately, this frequently results in poor choices. We might make a different, wiser judgment if we could pay attention to what someone is saying. We spend too much time convincing others of our viewpoints rather than listening to them. We should make curiosity our default state to prevent from making snap judgments. Curiosity makes us receptive to knowledge and information. Instead of passing judgment or assuming something, we might ask questions that will help us understand the significance of a statement. We can formulate our inquiries to avoid putting the other person on the defensive and cutting off dialogue. Keep your profiling and stereotyping to yourself. Try to be sympathetic and momentarily imagine yourself in the other person's position. If there is a problem with a commercial transaction or dealing, we must act professionally and allow the other person to respond. Communication is ruined when someone is defensive. It's important to keep negativity out of the conversation. An acceptable result often results from calmly discussing potential solutions or strategies to correct the problem. Empower one another. We all wanted to fit in, whether because we were insecure or afraid or needed other people's acceptance. But now that we are grown-ups, it's time to stop this conduct. You don't have to feel the same way about someone just because someone else did or because they don't like them. Make your own decisions by conducting your research. Instead of tearing one another down, we need to empower one another. It is crucial to concentrate on supporting people as mentors and colleagues in our personal and professional lives. Cultural change. With social media's anonymity, the world has changed. In a flash, we can post harsh, critical commentary without any consequences. When you include Twitter and Instagram, we respond instantly and without hesitation to hundreds of brief messages and images daily. We need to practice slowing down, listening, asking questions, and making thoughtful judgments now more than ever. Let's work to improve our interpersonal relationships and bring about a new societal shift that values optimism, decorum, and respect. Chapter 5. Learn from the new person. I find it more valuable to learn from everyone around me, from my teammate to my competitor to that odd individual I ran into in the coffee shop this morning. The value of learning from those around us cannot be overstated. When we're willing to take in what others have to teach us, we gain from both of our experiences and can pick up knowledge and insight. The process of picking up knowledge from others is not passive. Rather, it calls for our active participation and dedication. Everyone can now access knowledge. Those who pass up this chance will continue to be where they are, their abilities becoming less significant. These 7 benefits of lifelong learning should be sufficient justification for continuous learning. Maintain relevance. Avoid falling behind. By staying current with trends and changing your skill set, you can ensure you stay relevant in your industry. You must continue to learn new things to be useful in this fast-evolving technological world. Be ready for everything. Your ability to adjust to unforeseen changes, such as losing your job and needing to rely on new abilities to find employment, will be improved through lifelong learning. If you keep learning, you'll readily leave your comfort zone and accept new work possibilities. Improve your reputation. If you're constantly learning, you'll keep improving, advancing your job, and getting recommendations from coworkers and managers. You'll likely switch jobs multiple times throughout your life, so you'll need to acquire new abilities to adjust. Competence results in assurance. Learning new things makes us feel accomplished, which increases our self-confidence. As a result, you'll feel more prepared to take on challenges and investigate new business opportunities. Invent fresh ideas. Developing new skills will provide you with more options and help you find unique answers to problems. You might make more money this way. Modify your viewpoint. By expanding on your existing knowledge, continuous learning helps you think more creatively and alters your perspective. The more you know, the better you'll get at seeing various perspectives on the same thing, which will help you comprehend a situation more thoroughly. Spread the word. Continuous learning involves more than just you. Your ability to lead others by encouraging them to pursue further education is enhanced by lifelong learning, which aids in developing your leadership abilities. How to learn from others. Even the most successful person on the planet has something to learn from someone else. People with more knowledge or different viewpoints can provide excellent guidance and pointers to help you along your journey. Listening through these practical suggestions can help you start immediately if you want to learn from your peers or superiors. Get to know those who are in your vicinity. Bring them out for coffee or cocktails. Try going to lunch together or hanging out after work if they are coworkers. Create a study group if they are your classmates, or go out for drinks. You can learn more from one another the more you get to know one another. Try to get to know those who are the opposite of you. Perhaps an older person or a long-term employee from your firm is enrolled in one of your seminars. You might certainly learn a lot from them. Treat everyone with respect. Not just your classmates, but everyone can teach you something. At work, you might run into a newbie with a lot less experience than you. He may be a recent graduate, but that doesn't mean you can't learn something from him. Try to be willing to learn from everyone, not only those you perceive as being on par with you. This is crucial if you hold a position of authority. Even if you're the boss of your staff, you may always learn from them. Be aware of your surroundings. Simply keep an eye out and be conscious of what they do. You don't have to follow anyone, that would be creepy, but you should note any routines that other people find successful. For instance, if one of your classmates consistently performs well on tests, you might observe them studying over lunchtime rather than engaging in conversation with others. If a coworker of yours consistently receives compliments from the superior, you might observe them staying late at work or working on weekends. Accept helpful criticism. If someone offers you advice, heed it. Although getting defensive or on guard is easy, most individuals genuinely attempt to be helpful when making comments. You may hone your technique and enhance it by receiving constructive criticism. For instance, a classmate might advise you to spend more time studying for a challenging weekly class. They're just letting you know what works for them. They're not saying it to be mean. Pay attention to others' errors. Avoid repeating strategies that you are aware fail. You probably shouldn't follow the counsel of a classmate if they seem to have an excellent study technique but then fail the test. It's not necessary to draw attention to it, but you might mentally note it nonetheless. Or perhaps a colleague who has only recently joined the organization requests a raise. They might have requested it too soon if they didn't get the raise. Request a different viewpoint. Various persons can offer diverse viewpoints. If you're having trouble, go to a classmate or a peer and ask for help. You can benefit from their perspectives and experiences when making a decision. Use phrases like, "Hey, you're always great at conversing with the boss. Do you have any advice for me regarding how to put up a new project?" Discard suppositions. Find out from your peers what they would do in your shoes. It can be a problem you've already dealt with in the past or one you're now facing. Give them all the pertinent information, then solicit any advice they may have. For example, "So, let's assume you have an effective presentation at work tomorrow and you're unsure the supervisor would approve. Would you show your manager the presentation and ask for suggestions, or would you keep it to yourself and continue to work on it?" Pay attention to past failures. Learn more about what took place before you were there. This is an excellent tactic to adopt if you're new to a firm or a job. Stay current on initiatives, personnel, and methods that succeeded or didn't work as you converse with those around you. Perhaps the previous person in your position suggested a 4-day work week but was rejected. You can take inspiration from their effort and approach them differently. Seek assistance. It's the easiest method to learn from others. Ask them for advice if you're having trouble, and you can tell someone else is good at your job. Ask them if they can offer you advice, but don't take up too much of their time. For instance, perhaps you're struggling in your chemistry class. You might go to your classmate who consistently completes their schoolwork well and inquire about their technique. Have discussions rather than interrogations. Never put pressure on others to provide you with advice. Try to have amicable conversations with your employees or classmates instead, and let them talk about anything they like. It's okay to ask questions, but it could be unfriendly if the conversation becomes one-sided. For instance, approach a classmate and start a conversation regarding the course if you genuinely want to know about their study habits. Before asking your questions, talk about how difficult the homework is and how tedious group projects are. Asking relevant questions will make your interactions with others feel more genuine and less forced. Pay attention to what they say rather than only half listening while formulating your response. After that, summarize what you heard to reflect on the other individual's words. If you do this, people will react favorably. Examine the resumes of experts in your sector. They must be doing something well if they can land a job. Ask to see the resumes or CVs of your peers or mentors so you may see what they choose to include. Then, while you look for jobs, emphasize those qualities in your application. You may frequently discover sample resumes online if you don't have access to someone in person to inquire. Try looking for sample resumes together with your profession. Consider your strengths and weaknesses. Determine what you need to learn. Knowing your strengths will make you receptive to receiving suggestions from others. Everyone has a weak point, even if you're an expert in another field. For instance, even if you excel at selling, you could find it difficult to format paperwork and submit forms. You might be able to learn the technology you need for your career from someone in your firm. When you can, offer to assist. We may all learn from one another. If you do the same for your peers, they'll be more willing to give you advice and insight. If you see someone struggling, give them your helpful advice or tell them what worked for you. Most likely, they'll be able to provide you with some counsel that will be helpful to both of you. Since everyone is so unique, someone will certainly benefit from your perspectives and experiences. You might be able to present a viewpoint that hasn't been considered previously by someone else. Take after what works. Try out the suggestions made by your peers. You can change it as needed if it doesn't work for you. Although you don't have to mimic others perfectly, you can modify their methods to suit your need. For instance, Perhaps you have difficulty reaching individuals when working on group tasks. You might have heard from a fellow student that holding weekly check-in meetings is an excellent method to hold individuals accountable. Using that information, you might arrange check-in meetings held through video chat to make them more convenient for everyone. Chapter 6. How to make small talk. Making small talk isn't as simple as it sounds. As anyone who has been overheard at a wedding reception or cocktail party discussing recent precipitation statistics will attest. It can be uncomfortable, stilted, and mildly painful to converse with strangers. However, there is an art to it that can be learned. You don't have to be brilliant, just nice. You might even begin by making clear, obvious comments that make it easier for others. To help you navigate your next party more effortlessly, this chapter teaches you the tricks of how to make small talk with elegance and grace. What is small talk? Small talk topics make for fantastic conversation starters between strangers. Making small talk might cause anxiety if you have a social anxiety disorder. It may also be challenging if you tend to be more introverted. Making small talk can help you get the self-assurance you need to strike up discussions, form connections, and improve your social abilities. Even if it makes you uncomfortable, avoiding small talk altogether will worsen your anxiety. Make a point of getting over your phobia of small talk rather than being afraid of it. Knowing what to talk about and what to avoid is an excellent strategy for reducing anxiety. Why is small talk so important? Just try to remember. How did you make a strange connection feel comfortable? Small talk may be the solution. Making use of small talk in a positive way can make life smoother and more success-oriented. You can never predict who you'll run into next. These conversations enable you to create an excellent framework for communicating with everyone you meet. Additionally, it gives you enough room to show your ideas nicely. In addition to this, the following points also emphasize the significance of small talk. It makes you smarter. According to specialists, these talks improve a person's capacity for problem solving. Few social situations can persuade someone to think differently and approach a topic from a new angle or with a different answer. It is spontaneous. The nicest thing about these talks is that you never know where they will go. It's also great that there is no risk involved in participating. Sometimes the outcomes of these talks are so fruitful that they lead to amicable interactions or even the signing of a commercial contract. It makes you more aware. These talks unquestionably make you aware of the present. As a result, you start to pay attention to everything around you and become more alert. Even if your communication options may be restricted to a smartphone, this method of learning from other wise minds can be quite helpful. It can make you more popular. If you want to influence others and make new acquaintances, it's imperative that they all like you. People enjoy conversing with others who are generous and self-assured. You must remember that small talk is more than just a means of amusement and information exchange. Additionally, it is a considerate show of respect that most people value. You feel better about who you are as a result. Maybe your personality isn't the best, yet everyone has certain distinctive qualities that set them apart from others. While you might not even be aware of the special abilities that set you apart, you have them, and they can help you communicate those abilities to others. Everyone inevitably needs it. Small talk is crucial since practically everyone needs it. Whether you're pursuing a new career, wanting to spend time with your coworkers, signing a binding business contract, or simply entertaining friends, all of these situations necessitate the skill to make small talk. According to experts, your pitch is crucial for your business to succeed. Even brief, harmless conversations with the client are crucial. Companies are constantly looking for someone who can think outside the box, and small talk tips can help you do that. Tips to master the art of small talk. Now that you know all of the advantages of small talk, you must consider precise methods to become an expert. While everyone has their own distinctive and exceptional techniques to strike up a conversation with a stranger, the following advice can help you become an expert to this incredibly fascinating field. Introduce yourself properly. Starting a discussion does not always necessitate continuing an existing topic. It is not necessary to join a conversation between two people because it could be that it is private. Decide on an acceptable moment, then start a polite conversation with the other individual. Reduce anxiety. Most people are afraid to talk to new people. This is because they lack a good deal of self-confidence. Therefore, it is crucial that you start, maintain, and end the entire talk with confidence if you want to end on a good note. Be approachable in your body language. If you want someone to feel at ease speaking with you, you must exhibit the right body language. Additionally, body language can be used to judge a person. Make the other person feel he has your full attention, but be careful to keep the appropriate distance. Keep your phone out of sight, regardless of how busy you are. Avoid using your phone during the entire conversation, since this can come across as uninterested on your part. Find a shared or at least fascinating topic. It is excellent if you can find a shared topic to discuss with the other person. However, be careful to offer accurate facts because the other person must be knowledgeable about the topic because it is a common topic. If you can't think of a topic that interests everyone, try looking for one that is. Topic options for small talk. About weather or climate, art, sports, food, restaurants or cooking, entertainment like TV shows, movies, local restaurants, books or music, work, news, travel or local favorites, hobbies, and family. Share a personal fact. Don't overlook the main justification for starting small talk. You want to introduce yourself to the person, of course. Find a favorable moment, then provide important information about yourself that will impress the other person and aid in his understanding of who you are. Pay attention to your surroundings. As soon as you start speaking with the person, be sure to be ready for any more incidents you want to discuss. Keep a close eye on the other person and their environment, and then interact with them as necessary. Don't forget to listen. Small talk is a two-way conversation that must include active listening and speaking. Therefore, you must make an effort to pay attention to what the other person is saying, since only then will you be able to benefit from their knowledge and experience. We get better through practice, and your small talk abilities are true. To feel connected, happy, and engaged with others, practice this technique and become a master at it. Chapter 7. Know when not to talk. When your supervisor asked you for your opinion on anything last week, you replied that you didn't have one, but you were overflowing with ideas on the inside. Now that he's chosen to implement your coworker's suggestion, you wish he had heard your own. Your neighbor vented her frustration to you yesterday about her teenage son staying out late all night. That next night, you ran into her son and scolded him for what his mother had told you. You regret speaking up because she is now furious with you for interfering. Knowing when to speak can be difficult. The abilities of self-awareness, perception, and empathy are essential for making wise choices. According to a study, many people struggle with knowing when to stop talking or carry on during one-on-one interactions. This is a crucial ability for how coworkers and superiors view us, and maybe even make or break our chances of receiving career raises or promotions. Let's say your supervisor or CEO corners you at a work event, forcing you into a dialogue you can't escape. Your deadline is getting closer while your team meeting drags on forever. Or perhaps a coworker complains endlessly about an annoying work issue you'd rather not be aware of. How do you handle this? Stop talking when you have nothing to say. People occasionally start talking only because there is silence. This causes pointless conversation. You don't have much to say if you only speak to fill the silence. If someone isn't communicating, don't think they're in trouble. They could just be lacking words. Speaking purposefully will help you to become honest and focused. You need time to let your response fully develop. You will always react hurtfully or aggressively when in an emotionally charged scenario, such as a discussion or dispute with your spouse or friend. You might need to step back and examine something to get perspective. This lets you focus on your gut feeling and reason for the truth. Less is more in this case. Keep your unrelated ideas and emotions to yourself. You don't need to inform your uncle, for instance, that you believe his wife is ugly and that he should do better. This rule also holds when someone entrusts you with their personal information. They will find it difficult to trust you again if you divulge information that was shared with them in confidence. You lack an attentive listener. The message you're attempting to get through won't be understood if the other person isn't paying attention to what you're saying. Talk when you want to express your emotions. Some people hold emotions that they ought to express to maintain harmony. For instance, instead of harboring hatred and silence about your spouse's impolite remark about your food, bring it up with them. If you don't, you can find your repressed emotions explode in wrath when you least expect it. You can change something. You should speak up if your remarks have the power to improve the situation. For instance, you may make him laugh or point out the positive aspects of life to help your brother get over his job loss-related despair. A wonderful chance approaches. Missed opportunities are disappointing, and they are even more so when you have the power to stop them with a single word. For example, you were hesitant to talk to the person you had been crushing on for a long time. You waited too long to act. Therefore, they're no longer an option. Speak up when the chance arises. Someone has asked for your opinion. Everybody has a viewpoint. If someone asks for yours, don't be shy. Give it to them honestly and politely. How to talk more mindfully. Even if there are no underlying problems, a fondness for small talk may cause complications in daily encounters. You may have heard that communication is a two-way street at some point or another. You can't just say what you think. Listening is crucial too. You can't fully communicate unless you give both of those things sometimes. It may be worthwhile to reflect on previous interactions to balance the amount of time you spend talking with the amount of time you spend listening. Especially if anybody has ever complained, let someone else get a word in, or yes, you've told that tale 1,000,000 times already. You can talk more mindfully by using these suggestions. Pay attention to the reactions of others. By seeing how other people respond, you can often gain valuable insight into your conversational volume and manner. Try asking yourself these. Do people often begin talks by hurriedly saying, "I have just a few minutes to talk," or "I have to get going," etc.? Do people appear hesitant to strike up a conversation? They might wave and depart or send a quick text responding to your call when you enter the room. Do individuals often look preoccupied or uninterested in what you have to say? Perhaps they nod in agreement or look at their phones while you speak. Or perhaps they say a lot of "wow," "yeah," and "huh" on the end of their conversation. These comments aren't exactly polite, of course, but if the majority of the individuals you speak with respond in this manner, it would be worthwhile to check more closely. Have you ever caught yourself cutting someone off or interrupting them? Do you ever overshare or divulge information others have asked you to keep private? If most of your responses were yes, think about putting your honed conversational abilities on hold and using the chance to improve your active listening skills. Balance your talks. You don't have to stop talking, even if you tend to talk a lot. In reality, you can encounter circumstances when talking a lot is advantageous. Perhaps you spend time with an introverted friend who's content to listen as you lead the conversation. However, in a mixed group or with other talkative friends, you might want to go out of your way to give everyone some time to speak. Here are some guidelines for maintaining balance. Instead of speaking from experience, try asking questions. Focus on what other people are saying while they speak rather than planning your next move. Refrain from interjecting as soon as a pause occurs in a conversation. A little pause allows people to gather their thoughts before speaking because some people need more time than others. Never speak up during another person's sentence. Let them finish their phrase and come to a natural pause before you ask a question or seek clarification. Become accustomed to silence. When talks end abruptly, people frequently experience discomfort. Perhaps you talk a lot because you worry about sounding dull. You can even fear that your partner is silent when you're together and interpret this as a sign that your relationship won't last. However, silence isn't always awful. Some people find it enjoyable. It provides an opportunity for reflection and thought organization. Even when you merely listen, participating in a conversation properly and actively requires effort. Anyone else may not have similar conversational vigor as you do with your partner. Consider keeping a journal close at hand to record ideas that occur to you when you are alone. There's always another time if writing them down doesn't eliminate the desire to express them out loud. Think before speaking. Despite being an old proverb, it still holds today. Making it a practice to think things out before you speak never does any harm. Consider the following questions. Does this add anything new? Should I truly share this with everyone? Perhaps you developed your chattiness due to a lonely upbringing or as a way to make up for a spouse who didn't talk much in a relationship. Maybe you feel the need to fill conversational pauses to calm your thoughts or relax. Try deep breathing, mindfulness exercises, and grounding techniques to check in with yourself before you speak and break the habit of pouring every thought that comes to mind. You can learn to prioritize what is most important and relevant in your current surroundings using mindfulness practices. Chapter 8. Building Meaningful Relationships. Everyone desires meaningful relationships. To do that, we must first be willing to form meaningful connections. Deep connections need effort, which is the issue. Too often, we just lack the motivation to forge long-lasting connections. As a result, you can start to ponder what your life will be like in your later years. Relationships can be difficult at times. The nature of our connections significantly impacts our lives' level of quality. Relationships function like living things. They need care and effort to survive. They deteriorate and wither away when neglected. How many of your buddies have left over the years? What does a relationship mean? We are communal by nature and degenerate psychologically, emotionally, and physically if our social requirements are not addressed. Without strong social connections, it is easy to become discouraged, uninspired, and unempathetic. After all, others define and support each of us to some extent. Positive relationships increase happiness and fulfillment in life. Witnessing other people doing good gives us a sense of purpose and inspires us to continue through difficult times. It also makes us want to do good ourselves. Therefore, developing wholesome, fulfilling relationships is essential self-care and a joyful method to improve society. How do you know when a relationship is meaningful? The caliber of our connection so strongly influences our emotional and mental well-being. Consider the person who says they experience loneliness in a crowd. Even if you are technically connected, you need to feel truly connected to reap the full rewards of solid social bonds. A relationship can take many shapes, from friends and family to mentors and love partners. The worth of our connections ultimately depends on us and varies from person to person. Although there isn't a single criterion for what makes a relationship meaningful, many of us value the same approaches to strengthening our bonds, finding fulfillment in our work, and forming true connections. As an illustration, social media enables numerous individuals to connect and reach out to others. When a screen solely mediates those connections, the delight you derive from them diminishes. It feels fantastic to receive likes from friends and followers, but virtual hugs can't compare to the power of a real hug. Digital relationships don't fully satisfy our desire for deep human ties. Engagement, empathy, and conversations that deepen your bond are necessary to develop a meaningful connection with another individual. Overcoming fictitious barriers and progressing together through life's ups and downs requires sincere attention and effort. Steps to help you build more meaningful relationships. Everybody wants to improve. A better man, father, spouse, boyfriend, businessman, etc. The relationships we develop matter greatly regarding getting better and succeeding. In this section, I'll outline 9 measures you may take to create more beneficial, significant, and enduring personal and professional relationships. Be sincere. Whatever kind of relationship you seek, you owe it to yourself and others to be sincere. Building amazing relationships that will benefit you and others will be easier when you are true to yourself and aware of what you want. Put others' needs ahead of your own. One word sums up the secret sauce for creating any kind of lasting connection: listening. Even if you have an objective, start as a listener always. Create an outstanding first impression. Let's be honest. I'm very sure you've been thinking about how you could make a fantastic first impression as you were heading to an event, a party, or a conference. Many people concentrate on what they'll say first regarding this element. First impressions, however, are unrelated to what you say. A first impression is made when someone recognizes you and has an initial opinion of you. Keep your head high, shoulders back, and chest up, and grin broadly as you do this. People will treat you how you appear if you are open, self-assured, and kind. Extend a warm welcome to everyone you meet. You might be thinking, how am I going to do that? Well, my buddy, the solution is easier than you might imagine. This connects to what I said in point number 2. You need to pay attention to them and display interest if you want to make everyone you encounter feel welcome. Ask them about themselves. Don't be shy. People enjoy being the center of attention. Do they have any fascinating things to say? Great. As you react to what they just said, repeat some of that. Most of the time, if you exhibit interest, the other person will be genuinely interested in you and your life story. Keep your eye on the prize. You may make some easy changes to your relationships to make them better. We all connect with others throughout the day, whether our spouse or partner, kids, coworker, and business partners, bus drivers, etc. What can you do, though, to change their nature? Engaging in more constructive conversations is the basic solution. 5 positive encounters have a greater positive influence than 1 negative one. So what can you do as a result? Start by paying attention to and emphasizing the positive traits of others. When speaking with someone, try to concentrate on their admirable qualities. Although you shouldn't overlook the unfavorable aspects of your encounters, ideally, you should stick to the 80-20 guideline. Only 20% of your conversations focus on the negative parts, and 80% of your interactions are pleasant. Go a step further and be a helper. How do you build a name for yourself and ensure that people remember you? There's a significant probability that you're following the crowd if you're finding it difficult to establish lasting relationships in your personal and professional life. That's affected by following suit with everyone else's actions and acting. You might want to connect with business leaders on social media or at the next conference you both plan to attend. Or you might want to impress the woman you're dating. Remember, be honest with yourself. Remember that we all need help with something. Your date might be unfamiliar with the area and in need of assistance. If you're wedded, you might be able to support your wife in realizing a particular desire she has. Influencers often appreciate exposure in your niche. Your assistance might take the shape of, for instance, a positive review of their new book, a mention of them in a blog post, or an invitation to appear as a guest on your podcast. Be sincere and consider how you may stand out by going above and beyond to assist others without a specific purpose. Don't be shy to display your weakness. Sometimes you must swallow your pride, be vulnerable, and acknowledge that you are wrong. Why? We all strive to be flawless, the alpha male. But being vulnerable, helps us emotionally connect with the people we speak with. In other words, by being sincere, acknowledging your mistake, and apologizing, you demonstrate a significant strength, your capacity to acknowledge your shortcomings. Remember that being open and honest with someone else means being vulnerable. Follow-up. People leap and break the ice, especially regarding business ties. They introduce themselves, have a brief conversation, swap business cards, and exchange contact information, then end it there. Following up will guarantee you get the most out of your relationships with your clients, peers, and industry leaders. You can alphabetically organize the people in your phone or email address book for your relationships and set up a little time each week to communicate with them. For instance, you might concentrate this week on people whose last names begin with the letters A, B, and C. D, E, and F, etc. will be next week. This will guarantee that no one will forget about you and that your relationships will continue. Leave everything and everyone in a better condition than you found them. There are several techniques I could share with you. As Jordan Harbinger once said, leave everything and everyone better than you found them. This is key to developing better, meaningful, lasting connections. You need to overthink a conversation for it to occur because words alone cannot constitute a decent conversation. It is truly about connecting with the other person that communication is based on at its core. Anyone may improve their relationships and communication skills with a basic understanding of human nature and behavior, making a good first impression, using non-threatening and pleasant body language, praising effectively, and arriving at meetings with useful information are all skills that everyone should be aware of. You'll feel more at ease and confident in conversations with knowledge and sound technique. You'll also make more friends and advance more swiftly in life. Practical suggestions: think of positive behaviors. Imagine yourself smiling, making eye contact, and using pleasant body language before you walk into a meeting. Visualization can ensure your meeting goes smoothly by acting as a self-fulfilling prophecy. Keep in mind the insightful acts that others disclose about themselves. Immediately after speaking with someone, write down some intriguing facts on the back of their business card. Then you can make an impression on them by sharing one or two details when you next meet.
We appreciate you tuning in to one of our captivating audiobooks. For more immersive experiences, here is another audiobook we're certain you'll enjoy. Don't forget to show your support by liking this video, sharing what you loved about this audiobook in the comments section below, and subscribing for more captivating audiobooks like this. Thanks for being a part of our audiobook community.